You're now being recorded. Don't anybody do anything tremendously embarrassing or controversial. So what I'm really going to try to emphasize over the next 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, is how we integrate the Zoom tools with the online tools, the online material that you're going to be using. So it's more about technology and the integration of technology, and a little bit less about teaching theory. Any questions about that? This first section of the class that we'll get to in a moment is looking at Zoom from a student's point of view. And as I think you'll learn, probably by the end of today, the students are going to have a somewhat different perspective than you do. For one thing, they have access to different features in Zoom. They have a somewhat more limited feature set. But as I want to spend a moment talking about in just a little while, we expect that a lot of the students are going to be using cell phones to participate in the classes. And it's going to, I think, be extremely important that you be aware of the limitations of working off of a cell phone, in particular, the screens being as tiny as they are. In my opinion, I've messed around with it a little bit, and using a cell phone for Zoom, if you're going to do anything other than just listen, is a bit of a hassle. So probably virtually everything you do, all the class plans that you put together, all the materials that you intend to present, the videos you choose to share, all that stuff needs to be chosen with the student's perspective and potentially their screen limitations and other technology limitations in mind. So this first section of today's class is going to be kind of looking at things from a student's point of view. Then in the back part of the class, we'll spend a little bit of time on some teacher tools. And I hope that we're going to have time to touch on the lesson one that was associated with this class. So navigating the student screen. You are using the student screen right now. You don't have access to the same tools that I do. I'm going to jump off of this now. Second. Did everybody have a chance to go through the pre-work? There was a set of like commands you were supposed to try out. Okay, so I'm assuming that you all know how to do that stuff. You can go to full screen, regular screen. You know how to mute, and I see most of you are muted. I can, by the way, as you'll see later, I can force mute you. So whoever's teaching, when you're teaching, if, for example, one of the students has a child in the background or something like that, or for some reason there's noise, you can mute that student from your end as a teacher. You can also turn off their video if you want. In fact, you can kick them out of class. And before the end of the 3 days, you'll learn how to do all those 3 things. Probably the only thing, I hope the only thing that'll ever be of any use to you is muting somebody. I assume you can go between speaker view and gallery view. Yes?
Yes.
Are you on just out of curiosity, are you on speaker or gallery view right now?
Speaker. Speaker?
Gallery.
Gallery.
Speaker. Speaker.
So, a mix. It's totally up to you where you want to operate. I find it personally a little bit more satisfying when there's a manageable number of people in the conversation to use gallery view. That way things don't keep switching. All you have is a box around the person that's speaking at that moment. But it's entirely up to you how you want to handle that, as long as you know how to switch back and forth between gallery and speaker views. Can you each send me like a one-word message? I want to make sure you got that part of it down. That's an easy thing for you to demonstrate. Hi, Olivia.
Hello.
I don't know how to do it. Oh.
Ching, 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 ching.
Hi, I thought, to everyone, to Scott.
Good. I think
Well,
it should be about everybody. Excellent. You may notice also that there are reaction buttons at the bottom of your screen. Your students will also, have access to this kind of stuff, so you can do that, which I just did for your chat indications. You could do that if we're going to have a party or something. If there's something worth celebrating. Not hypercritical, but it's a good thing to know. There could be times as you're instructing when instead of, for example, asking you each to chat, you would ask or send me a chat message. You might ask each of your students to acknowledge that they understood something you had just explained, or to give a thumbs up or some other reaction, depending on what you're instructing. And you might find that that's a more efficient way to pull the individuals and get a sense for where the class is at. So I think that does have some value. We're going to be limiting the class sizes because it is much more difficult to teach online, as I mentioned a few moments ago. The current target maximum for one teacher in a class is eight students. If they have an assistant, the maximum is 12. I imagine most classes will be a little bit below that. The reasoning is in part, if you're using breakout rooms with particularly low-level classes, they may not be able to function in a breakout room where you've broken a class into subclasses that don't have visibility into what each other are doing. It might be difficult for them to operate if they don't have some sort of assistant or teacher supervising and facilitating their conversation. So again, the thinking is that a teacher, particularly with advanced classes, can probably manage 8 people without a whole lot of difficulty. More than that, you're going to need to be able to break people out, and having an assistant would be necessary. Any questions so far? All right. So how was that?
Fine. Work.
We made it back.
Yeah.
Did you experiment at all, just out of curiosity, for example, with anything fancy like screen sharing, or just
No.
did you just discuss the questions?
I have a question. Kathy's device didn't let her speak. So I tried to chat with her, but it looked like it was only set up to chat with everyone.
That's right.
Something you did? Okay.
By default, that's to prevent students from having private chats.
Yeah.
So there are settings within our home account that could enable chatting between
Gotcha.
students, or I could set it up just for this meeting, but I would discourage it, for us in general and for you in particular in your classes. Any comments on the experience? It's pretty seamless.
But I have another question.
Sure.
If you said for the students to take a picture of the questions, and then if they are on their phone, are they able to see the questions as well as see each other in their rooms?
They would have to flip back and forth between
Okay.
apps on their phone.
Okay, thank you.
And that's, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But again, thinking about things from the student's perspective, particularly in light of what technology they're actually using, is going to be really, really critical to us this year. Okay. Yes.
Scott, we had a question. Can the host join a breakout room at any time, or are you completely off?
No, I can, and I did, just as a sample. Let's see, I think,
3.
yeah,
3.
Sister Ellen and Betty's.
Yes, you did.
So yes, you can drop in and check to see how things are progressing. It's very easy to hop in and out.
When you do that, Scott, are the students able to see that you've dropped in?
Yes,
Cool.
it's full transparency. I don't know, this is odd that I'm not being allowed to show you my Zoom screen. I'm going to have to figure out what's going on there. So for the next class, I can actually show you what you see when you create a breakout room and so on. Okay. I'm going to go back to share screen anyway. This slide isn't actually part of the official material, but I'm so worried about this, or I think it's so the likelihood of people planning lessons, me planning a lesson that's not going to work for the students is pretty high, because it's really easy to assume that everybody's looking at a screen as large as the one you're looking at and has access to a printer and that kind of thing. So just for a second, I want to go through these things just as a reminder, so that we all kind of are particularly sensitive to this stuff. So some students, probably most students, will be attending via smartphone. I would imagine that there's going to be a difference between, say, intro level 1, level 2 students and that technology they have access to versus students at the higher levels. The higher levels probably going to have access to better technology on average. But certainly one thing that you want to do as you're getting your class kicked off in the first week is to find out what kind of restrictions you're dealing with and they're dealing with, because absolutely we'll need to conform to their limitations. Second point is one we may want to discuss further. They probably aren't going to have access to apps like Word or PowerPoint or things that run on a computer. The reason that's important is that sometimes you may want to send homework or send a document to them. So you need to make sure somehow that the document is something they can actually read on whatever technology they're using, say on a cell phone. My personal preference, in fact, that's why I'm using PowerPoint right now for this presentation, as opposed to working off, I could just as easily work off of Google Docs, which is exact same presentation, which I've uploaded to Google Docs. But I've just spent more time in PowerPoint in general and a little bit more comfortable with PowerPoint. So that's where, for the moment at least, I'm a little bit more comfortable. If I did this with students, they would not be able to view this document. However, if I upload the document to Google Docs and give them access, create a link as I did for you all, create a link that the students have access to, even on a cell phone, even if they don't have a Google account, they can view the link. So I don't want to advocate too strongly for a particular answer here about what type of document management you want to do, what applications you want to use. You probably, again, want to work that out with your students. But I do want to emphasize that there's a pretty sound argument, if any of your students have technology limitations, like they're going to be working off a cell phone, to move to Google Docs or to something like Google Docs that's that ignores what platform it's running on, has the capability to do that. Now bring that up, because that's a learning curve, and if you've not done it before, if you're used to working on a Mac or used to working on PC, using standalone applications like, say, PowerPoint, there's a little bit of a translation, a little bit of relearning you need to do to get yourself set up in Google Drive and Google Docs. So, sorry about that. So think about that between now and the time school starts. If you want, I'm not prepared to give a full Google Drive, Google Docs lesson. They're pretty user-friendly. There's a lot of material online and on YouTube that explains how those applications are used. So you can probably learn it on your own, but if you want any bits of advice after class or between classes, by all means send me an email and I'll do what I can to get you started. Next bullet, your students may not use email regularly. So another thing you'll want to settle with them when classes first begin is, what are you going to use to communicate? Are you going to use, say, Apple phone SMS texting, which is what I'm accustomed to using, or email I'm accustomed to using. A lot of people, particularly from other countries, use WhatsApp. I've only used WhatsApp when traveling. It works fine, and it operates more or less like the default texting app on an iPhone. But my students might not have access to an iPhone and may not be able to receive messages that way. So again, the message is talk to your students, find out whether they want to receive emails and are kind of in the habit of checking their emails regularly, or even if they use email at all, or whether it's going to make more sense for you to communicate with them, sending homework, sending information about the class, telling them there's a snow day and we're not going to be meeting, things like that, using conventional text, email, WhatsApp, telephone calls maybe. That's up to you to work out with your students.
Scott, I have a question.
Sure.
If you were giving out homework, would you do a mass email or message to every student in the class, or would you do it individually to like keep emails and numbers protected from other students?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, in the past, I've not worried about, inter-student kind of sensitivity about that.
Mhm.
In general, the students talk a lot and have seemed to be comfortable with each other. If you have any students that you think are going to be sensitive about that, then obviously you'd want to create a rule for yourself that kind of deals with it. That is a terrific question, and actually I may add that to the slide for the next time I give this, because that's pretty important. In general, we feel pretty strongly, as I'm sure most of our teachers do, that respecting the sensitivities, the security sensitivities of students from other countries is a pretty important thing to do. So yeah, that's a terrific question.
Well, we could use a blind copy,
You could BCC.
if
Let's see, some students may not have access to printers. So for example, if you send them a list of exercises, they may not be able to print them out. Maybe send them a link, and you'll have to work out something where they complete the exercises online and then tell you the answers, or you take a photograph of the picture, a photograph of the screen, and send it to you if you want to give them feedback on it. It's just another thing that's going to make this slightly more complicated than usual. The next bullet you'll be finding out about soon enough, but I'll break the news here. The students and teachers are all getting electronic copies of the book for free. If they want a paper copy, they'll have to buy it. We're going to provide a system, a kind of little process for the students purchasing through us at the very beginning of the year. So you'll pull your students, and those who want to purchase a hard copy will be able to purchase a hard copy, but they're not being automatically provided with one. And there may be some that, who don't need one, don't want one, or can't afford one, and you'll want to keep that in mind. The reason that's worth highlighting is that particularly at the lower levels, there are a lot of exercises in the book that are completed in the book, fill in the blank type things. And as you'll see, even in today's lesson, intercombio lesson, you may have to substitute something that they can complete online so they can get the same exercise, practice the same skill without a book that they can physically write into.
So how much do the books cost, out of curiosity?
I think with shipping, it was maybe 20. I bought one. I bought it for an intro class, which I don't think I'm going to be teaching in the end. And there's $23 with shipping. Now, the reason we're having the teachers organize this and doing an order is to, first of all, we can get a bulk discount. Second of all, we can spend a lot less money on shipping than if the students each have them shipped directly to themselves. So it'll be less if you order through BLC. Any other comments on that? Okay. Now we'll shift perspectives a little bit and look at it from the teacher point of view. If you see right now, I'm sharing my screen. I'm in full screen mode with that. And at the top of this group of our video images, I have a choice of ways to display the video images. Right now, I'm viewing them as a stack. I can also view them as a gallery. We can go into speaker mode, so whoever's making noise. Betty's not making noise, but for whatever reason, she's getting the honor of being on the screen. You can move this around as you're sharing your screen, you can enlarge it, get more people on it as you're sharing your screen. So you'll probably be sharing your screen pretty often with your students. Your students may also want to do this if they're looking at a full screen, shared screen, and want to have the gallery displayed. So those are the ways you manipulate the way everybody's images are displayed while you're viewing a full screen. Questions on that?
Oh, I thought, isn't there something called split screen where you can see the gallery and the screen? Or
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, aren't you seeing the gallery and the screen right now?
yeah, I
Okay.
am. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to just, cut your screen in half with half being the shared screen and half being a gallery of images.
Okay.
If, for example, you've got your full screen shared and you're, for example, creating a whiteboard drawing and putting some whiteboard text, which we'll talk about tomorrow, and you want to jump to another app, you do it the way you would normally do it, which is for Windows, Alt-Tab. So I can jump to different things by doing Alt-Tab. Ooh, did I just do that? Did somebody just annotate the presentation?
That was me. I didn't realize I would share it. I thought I could just do it on my screen.
I didn't know you could do that either. That's, I need to check the settings on the account. You probably shouldn't be in a position to annotate what I'm showing. Yeah, so, excuse me. And it's Command Tab on a Mac computer. I think probably if you have any experience at all with your computers, you know how to do that. And it works that same way when you're sharing your screen is the point. All right. You all right now have a button that says share screen at the bottom. If you hit that button, it won't function for you because you're students. Unless I deliberately allow it, which I can do. I can give you the permission during class to allow you to share your screen. I would discourage that, but you are able to do that. If you hit that button and you're a teacher, what you'll see next is this screen. If, for example, you just want to show your desktop, which is what I was hitting before, you'd hit the upper left-hand corner. So every time what we saw was my full desktop with apps on it and a couple of windows open, same kind of desktop you probably all see. If you want to create a whiteboard, which operates as a blank document that you can use to write sentences, go through examples, draw figures, and so on, you can click on whiteboard. You also have other choices. I right now have Firefox, Google Chrome, and if you have Safari as an option. One feature on this screen, one decision that you need to make on this screen that's important besides which window you want to show is to decide whether you want to include computer sound. If you're sharing an audio file this way or a video file, for example, on YouTube this way, you have to hit share computer sound. Then when you display the video on full screen with the sound shared, not only will your students see the active video and all the movement with the active video, they'll get the sound at the same time the video is being displayed. Okay, so particularly useful, that share computer sound, particularly useful when using videos or audio files. Any questions? Okay.
I guess I have one, because this is the part I totally don't get. So Firefox, all those things being open, is that in your possibility or you've set that up so that you can do it?
Well, that's actually, this is a standard set of options that that Zoom includes.
Okay, thank you.
But you can go to your screen, like, what, before when I was sharing my screen, I was sharing a desktop. I could have shared, a browser window. I could have made other choices. Normally, I think you'll either be using a whiteboard or you'll go to your desktop. And then, in fact, this is something we'll want to talk about either at the end of this class or tomorrow's class, about preparing your desktop for a class. That's something you definitely want to do. You want to make sure that most of the things, or all the things that you want to have open, are open before your class begins, and that other things that you don't necessarily want to share with your students are not open. Because if you share your screen and you go to your desktop, or you inadvertently do an Alt Tab or something to jump to another app, you may expose something that you don't want to be shared. For example, when Linda went through this class with us, she hadn't done that, and she had her email account open. And not that anybody cared what was on her email account, but I could easily imagine that there might be something sensitive in your list of emails in your email inbox in some circumstances. So it's just clearly good procedure before class begins to get everything organized that you anticipate having to include in the class and nothing else, so that you're just not sharing information that you don't want to share. But no, this set of things here is standard. When you're ready to stop sharing, this is what's displayed for me right now. I just go up and hit that stop share button, and we're back to where we were before. For using a whiteboard, for going to some presentation or other class materials that you have on your desktop all ready to go, sharing a screen is a piece of cake. One extra thing to think about if you're going to be sharing a video, but in general, I don't think any of you should have any issues with screen sharing. You should practice, but I don't think you'll have any issues with it. Let's see. We're going to go into breakout rooms again. When we're all together like this and the teacher is driving, you cannot share your screen unless I give you specific permission to do it. And by default, all of our classes are set with the permission only for the host to share their screen. In breakout rooms, it's different. In breakout rooms, you can share screens with each other. So if there are 3 of you in a breakout room, each of you can share the screen with the others in that breakout room. We're going to go into breakout rooms again. I'm going to go with the same number, so just two people per breakout room. Spend a couple of minutes just exploring what's involved in sharing a screen. You can take turns and organize that yourselves, but sharing a screen, jumping to different places on your desktop, stopping sharing your screen, and so on. Just to kind of give it a test. So I'm opening the rooms again. Okay, how did that go? I jumped into 2 breakout rooms and people were having mixed success.
Yeah.
Most of you feel okay with that?
Yeah. Well, I was practicing with the whiteboard, and I could get the letters on, but I couldn't erase it. I kind of tried, and then it reappeared again. So I wasn't sure how to do the whiteboard clearly yet.
Yeah. My suggestion would be, here's what I did preparing for this class. I had, well, at one point, this sounds ridiculous. I had a meeting with myself, and I attended the meeting from a laptop, a cell phone, a tablet, and the desktop, and just checked to see how I had different operating systems and different things I tried to do. But I created breakout rooms, just ran through it as if it were real life, with not me the only person in attendance. I would strongly encourage you to do that. Linda included I believe it was the pre-work for this meeting, a link that you can use to have a practice meeting. You'll need a Zoom account, but you can set up a meeting that way. We've talked about having, ourselves, we being the board, ourselves participating in some practice meetings for no other reason And so you guys can exercise those skills and kind of get a little extra practice in. So think about, I mean, we may have to do that. So if you practice a little bit on your own and find that you're just running into obstacles and you can't seem to work around them, then send me a note, and maybe we'll have to, set up a half an hour one-on-one or something like that, half an hour tutorial session, just to kind of hammer that, whatever skills you're struggling with. Okay. But
Did she
even
already
now,
send that link? Did
Pardon?
she already send that link so we could do a practice on our own, or?
Yeah, it was I believe it was in the pre-work for today's meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a paragraph at the top end of that about, hey, if you want to practice some of this stuff, I think. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that's the case. If not, I can get you one. But you will obviously, need to have a Zoom account to do that. Let's switch gears. I think we're going to come back to screen sharing maybe tomorrow, on Wednesday. But I want to at least dip our toes into the water with respect to Intercambio. Have you all looked at Intercambio? Have you at least tried to access the website?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So some have, some haven't. In the volunteer document you received, I don't know, several weeks ago, the one that first mentioned these classes that you're in right now, there were a bunch of links there to a bunch of really important information. The last version of the volunteer letter included instructions for accessing Intercambio. So try that out. Make sure that you can do it without any trouble. That's kind of a starting point. If you look at the structure of Intercambio, with the exception of the intro classes, each year or each level has a left book and a right book. These do not build on each other. So it's not like a first half book and a second half book. They're interchangeable. So in theory, if we wanted to, we could have half of our level 5 classes start with the right book, and then half start with the left book, and then switch halfway through the year. We do, we can promote people from one level to another at mid-year without worrying about them having missed some crucial preparatory steps that would have happened in the first half of the year. It's a pretty logical system from that point of view. We're probably going to start with everybody using the left book of whatever level they're going to be teaching. So you'll be getting formal information about what level you'll be teaching and other instructions like that. In the meantime, if you have some sense for what book to look at, start with the left. That's probably the best place to start until we get things absolutely locked down. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Here we go. Shoot, can't see. This is the welcome doc. Can you all see this? That you should have received some time ago. This includes the instructions for how you access Intercambio. There are two things to kind of notice that, well, actually 3 things to notice. If you look at the instructions, there are links to, can you all still see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. To teacher books, which is what you'll have, the students' books are obviously a little bit slimmed down, but you have access to both if you want them. I think probably you want to start with the teacher books, look at the student books, just to, if you have some question about whether a particular piece of information is included, then you can take a look at that. The page numbering is a little bit different because of the supplementary material in the teacher books. Also, there are audio track links for teachers. So sprinkled throughout the lessons are short bits of audio that, act as a caption for a picture or introduce some grammatical concept, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, and I'll take this as a heads up, unfortunately, those audio track links are all the audio in one single long audio file for all the little snippets for that for that book. So for example, there is a level 1 left audio track that has concatenated this long series of bits of audio. The reason I want you to be aware of that is that when you're ready to use audio, you'll definitely want to get it queued up and ready to go before you meet with, or keep track of exactly what minute and second you want to start at, so you don't mess around trying to find the particular bit of audio that you want to share with your students. I think if you look through this link that I have open right now, you won't have any trouble getting onto Intercambio. I'm going to go straight to the Intercambio teacher link, then go to Read, Purchases. Here's all the teacher books, and as I mentioned, there's a left and right book for each level except for Intro, which only has a single intro book. And we are going to look at book 1 left. So you just click on the book and it opens. Normally the easiest thing to do will be to move quickly forward to the page that you want, as opposed to moving through the pages individually. Let's see, not quite there yet. Here we go. So look at the BLT teacher training sample lesson 1, if you have access to that. And if you can have them side by side. If anybody doesn't have access to it, then I'm going to shrink this screen and open it up in a screen so that you can see them both. I think Linda did a really good job. Again, this is her teaching style, so there's some things here that are, her personal style. But to give you an example of how you would think through a lesson ahead of time, how you would incorporate material from the book, how you would incorporate supplementary material, I think she's done a very good job of it. So there are 3 sample lessons or there will be, by the time I send you all the materials for this series of classes, 3 sample lessons for you to use just as models. You may not want to do it exactly the way she's done it, but I think all of them are really excellent as kind of prototypes. So one thing I wanted you to focus on is just the structure of the book. You can, with this site, zoom in. You can grab and move like you would Google Maps, for example. So keeping in mind that your students may have itty-bitty screens that they're looking at, you could very well be operating with that kind of magnification. So you might start off by sharing the picture and using the picture to get conversation started, and then move into explaining grammatical context, the concept, and so on. One thing that I think I would suggest as an alternative, again, this will come up again tomorrow, is as you say, approach something that involves practice sentences or illustrating a new concept, rather than using a whiteboard from Zoom, which has some limitations, formatting wise, and is a little bit clunky in terms of the user interface. If you're using Google, or even if you're using Word, have a blank document open. It'll also make it easier for you to save a copy and then share the copy later with your students. So if you look at the tabs at the top of my page, I opened a Google Doc before this class, and now I can directly write to the Google Doc. Make it bigger. So I could, I could ignore it for a moment, my crappy typing. I can, type. I can make it bold. I can change the font. I can save. Well, it's actually automatically saving. I can share it later with the link So if you can get to the point where you're comfortable with Google Docs, then the process of recording class materials as you're going along and then sharing them with the students later, or providing them even with some practice exercises on a Google Doc that they can work on at home and then come back to class with, is fairly straightforward.
Is it Google Doc, D-O-C?
Yeah, so the thing that's open right now is a Google Doc.
Doc.
This is my Google Drive. So you need to think of these as two kind of companion capabilities. Google Drive is like your hard drive at Google. You can organize it. You have to learn how to do it, but you can organize it the way you might organize folders on your desktop. So I've put, for example, some of the material for this class in a folder. So I can, which is exactly what I would have done with Word or PowerPoint or whatever on my desktop, but I've done it here. Google has a spreadsheet application, a presentation application, and a Word type document application. If you compose documents in, say, a Microsoft format, like you do it in Word or you do it in PowerPoint, you can upload, as I did here. This is PowerPoint. This was Word. You know, so these were mixed. These were done originally in Google. So that was originally PowerPoint. That was originally Google. That was originally Word. There's really very little involved to take, creating documents outside of the Google environment and bring them into Google. There's not really too much involved with creating a document in Google. So this, yes, is a Google Doc, which I haven't named yet, that looks just like Word from my perspective. I'll be able to compose and share or arrange it just the way I would in Word. And then if at the end of the class I wanted to send the students a link, I would do that from Google Drive and send them a link, make sure it has the restrictions removed, and send them a link for viewing. So that whole thing is not what this class is about, but it is important that you be aware that, one way or another, you've got to get that figured out, whether you're going to be using desktop applications or you're going to be using something safe like Google Drive. Your decision, but you'll need to work out some logistical details for sharing with your students. Kathy, did you have a question? Oh, no, it does not cost anything to use Google Drive. There may be some ridiculous space limitation, I don't know, but it would be free for you to use it for the school year. All right, back to the lesson. So you've seen that you can expand and shrink. You can see it's pretty easy to move through pages. These boxes in gray are supplementary material that doesn't appear on the student stuff. So it's kind of standard teacher textbook material. Zooming back to the very beginning of the book, there's an excellent overview of the structure of that particular book. Every class has the same structure with the same number of lessons. And for each lesson in this overview, you can see there's a title. You can see what the learning goals are. By the end of this lesson, it says very specifically what you're trying to work with the students to accomplish. There's some conversation goals. There's a grammar topic that's included. So that level, that sort of structure is the same in all of the classes. And this overview is great just to know what's coming and to know really what you're setting out to accomplish in a particular unit. Intercambio is good in that there are also progress checks. So there's a midterm progress check, and then there's a final progress check. We haven't, at the board level, completely decided what we want you to be able, what kind of schedule we want to follow for completing the book. But I would, at the moment, if I were you, I'd be thinking, probably I need to get through my first book, the left book probably, by about the beginning of next year. We also think it takes about 3 hours, 3 classes, to work through one of these sections, so one unit. In other words, 1 would be a week and a half, 2 would be a week and a half, and so on down the column. That enables you to kind of gauge what the pacing should be. It also implies that you're going to be repeating a whole lot. With only an hour in class each week, even with a little bit of homework on the side, you're going to have to repeat, 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 repeat in order for the students to lock in the lessons. So we're out of time. There is homework for, I think I've already sent you the homework for today's class. Okay, for the after homework. Take a look at that. I'll probably pick this up at the same spot tomorrow because there are a couple of other points that I want to make. But in the meantime, let's call it here. Please, if you can, give screen sharing and annotating a shared screen, navigating your desktop while sharing your screen. Give those skills a shot, in between classes, because you're definitely going to want to have some level of mastery of those. Any questions between Monday, today, and Wednesday, just shoot me an email and I'll do my best to get back to you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you at the same time on Wednesday.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.